Rito is a repressed guy who is too cowardly to talk to women. However, everything changes when he accidentally touches the intimate attributes of an alien girl. Now he has to marry her so that her father does not disintegrate Earth. It all starts the day he plans to declare his love to his eternal platonic crush, Haruna. But this time, the young man meticulously chooses his moment to do so, remembering how in the past he failed to confess over and over again after being interrupted by a falling flower pot, a German stampede of elephants, or even a truck that hated to see him get a girlfriend. After school, he approaches her carefully to open his heart. But before his words of love can escape his lips, fate mocks him, and an actual spaceship crashes right in front of his position, ruining his attempt once more. That night, while taking a bath, Rito wonders how he can interact better with women and not get flustered by every greeting he receives from them. In the middle of his reflections, his bathtub explodes, and when he looks in front of him, the universe has blessed him with a beautiful girl with anatomical gifts that mold to his hands. He instantly panics and screams so loudly that he gets the attention of his sister Maikan, and when she asks for the reason, he tells her there is a spectacular woman in his bathtub. However, when she goes to check, there is nobody there, which makes Maikan think her brother has been spending too much time watching private content on the internet. Embarrassed, the young man returns to his room thinking he had hallucinated, but upon entering, the girl is right there. She introduces herself as Lala, an alien from the planet Devoluk, and when he does not believe her, she shows her rear side to exhibit her cyan-toned tail, almost causing the boy to collapse. He asks her the reason for her stay, and she reveals that she teletransported there with a device she manufactured after being pursued by her captors. In that instant, her robot, Peak, appears and transforms into her clothes, granting her a change of appearance. Suddenly, two huge men appear and try to take the princess away immediately. Seeing this, the protagonist recognizes them as the girl's pursuers, and, at first, thinks it is best for them to take her so he can continue living a normal life. However, his heroic instinct takes control, and he moves with agility to save her and pull her away from them. She asks him why he does this, and he replies that he refuses to watch a lady get kidnapped under his watch. Nonetheless, the pursuers catch up to them and throw a vehicle to block their path. Suddenly, a flying saucer appears, and the main boss named Zaston emerges. Even when cornered, the young man refuses to let them take his cosmic visitor, but they inform him that the girl actually ran away from home after refusing to accept an arranged marriage, which surprises the boy. Annoyed, Lala summons an octopus robot that suctions everything around it with great force, including the protagonist. But because she forgot how to turn it off, the machine continues absorbing until it explodes, devastating the entire surroundings. The next day, the young man reflects on the chaos that occurred when Haruna suddenly calls him. Seeing his chance, he decides to confess and manifest all his feelings. But when he looks up, Lala is there, accepts the proposal, and effectively becomes his fiancée. The following morning, Rito wakes up shocked to see that the alien is by his side in a very suggestive manner. Just then, Mikan enters, and before he can offer explanations, she simply tells him to buy emergency contraceptives before leaving. After the princess gets dressed, the boy demands an explanation as to why she slept next to him. She replies that after getting engaged, it is normal for couples to sleep together. The young man firmly asserts that he does not remember proposing to her, but at that moment Zaston appears and explains that the instant he held her attributes and looked into her eyes was the moment of the proposal, which she accepted. When he tries to object, the commander declares that retracting his proposal would mean death, since touching Lala's virtues without committing would imply he is a pervert who deserves physical punishment and that his planet be destroyed, leaving him no choice but to carry the weight of being the future ruler of the planet Devoluk. Later, he leaves Lala at home and goes to school, still wondering how to get out of this situation. At that moment, Haruna passes by, ignoring him completely, and he realizes that he still needs to fix the misunderstanding of his declaration. However, he does not understand why she avoids him, and in the middle of his attempt to approach her, Lala appears, capturing everyone's attention with her otherworldly beauty. When he confronts her for being there, everyone asks what such an ordinary guy is doing with such a spectacular woman. And when the alien declares that she is Rito's girlfriend and that they just spent the night together, everyone infuriates over having lost to him, and they begin to chase him. The protagonist and his fiancée run until they are cornered, and he begs her to use her technology to get them out of there. Hearing that, she pulls out her teletransportation device, which sends them to a random place, leaving the young man's clothes behind. Both fall from a locker completely undressed, and, to the boy's horror, they are in the women's locker room where Haruna is located, which costs him a slap from her for showing his nudity. After classes, Rito is surprised to find his sister and Zaston resting together, and after talking with the military man, Mikan fully supports her brother's marriage to the space princess, which makes him notice that everything is even more complicated. Confused about what to do, he rhetorically asks the commander what he needs to do if he wishes to cancel the marriage. The warrior explains that during the 3 days following the proposal, he has to perform the same action he did when proposing, touching the girl's sacred gifts. Hearing that, the young man sets a timer knowing he only has 1 day left, but every time he tries from the bathroom to his bed, something always interrupts him and he fails in his attempts. A day later, only 1 1 hour remains before the deadline, and out of desperation, Rito takes Lala to a secluded place to talk in private. He tells himself that he must tell her the truth, but before he can do so, she speaks first. She honestly expresses how difficult it is to be a princess and have to do what her father or the kingdom wants, but affirms that with him, everything is different. She says that in their first encounter, he believed in her and even saved her, which proves to her that he is different from the others. The young man is moved upon hearing that, but suddenly his alarm sounds and he realizes that the deadline has expired. The next day at school, he thinks about his new situation and sees that the school is his only peaceful place. But fate refuses to let him rest, and at that instant, the teacher introduces Lala as a new student, leaving the protagonist and Haruna stunned. Immediately after, Rito takes the princess to a quiet place and confronts her for joining the school. When she asks him the reasons, he tells her it will be chaos if people discover she is an alien, so she should avoid drawing attention. She agrees to his request, but throughout the day, she continues performing superhuman acts like throwing balls at incredible speeds and not respecting personal boundaries. Meanwhile, Haruna is pensive about what she saw between the two, and at that moment, the young man walks by. She calls him over to talk, and seeing that it is his platonic love, he lights up with emotion. However, when they find a private spot, he does not know what to say, so he asks her opinion about Lala, realizing it is foolish. Haruna says the girl is beautiful and that she can see why he fell in love with her, breaking the boy's heart to hear that from his beloved. After school, the protagonist still cannot believe what just happened, and when Mikan sees this, she suggests they go cheer him up by changing the environment. So they go to the city, where Lala quickly captures attention due to her flashy clothing, and the young man tells her immediately that she should change her clothes. With the help of Peek, the alien tries on multiple civil outfits, from the strange to the revealing, and decides on a dress. They stroll through the city doing various activities, and at the game center, Rito wins her a stuffed animal, surprising himself by how much she values it. However, right after leaving, the girl's clothes begin to fade away because her robot consumed too much energy previously. Thinking fast, they drag the princess away from the gazes of strange individuals and enter a clothing store. While Lala gets new clothes, Haruna appears, and upon seeing her, the protagonist gets depressed, noticing that she sees them shopping as if they were lovers. However, right after, they manage to convince her that they are giving the visitor a tour of Japan, which reassures the boy a little. Then, they all take the girl to an aquarium, where she gets excited by all the fish in the place. While there, Mika notices her brother's discomfort with Haruna and understands what is happening. Being an understanding sister, she leaves them alone, and the young woman takes the opportunity to tell Rito the truth, explaining that she has always noticed him for years and that she is in love with him. However, at that precise instant, Lala enters backstage without authorization and sees the fish swimming unhappily. She decides to give them space substances that make them fly out of their tanks and floods the whole place to give them freedom. Then she decides to jump in without hesitation and, right there, ruins the intimate moment between the boy and Haruna, completely flooding everything. Afterward, they all return home together after escaping the flood, but after the tender moment they shared, Haruna and Rito now know each other's feelings. But then, on the way to school, he meets her and trips, which causes him to end up in a compromising position, earning a slap and setting their relationship back. That night, the young man dreams that his beloved confesses her most intimate desires to him. But before anything else happens, Lala wakes him up with her physical attentions, which disconcerts him. Later, Rito reflects alone on his future as the princess's husband, and Zastan confronts him on whether he regrets marrying her. The boy quickly denies it and instead asks what marrying Lala will entail. The commander responds that by marrying her, the young man will become the new king of Deviluk, and that means he will have to fight for territories and defend their planets against enemy forces. Hearing that, the boy imagines himself on the battlefield being absolutely destroyed, which makes him panic and run back to class. Back at home, they dine on sukiyaki together, which the military man describes as the best food he has ever tasted. That makes the protagonist wonder if the food in outer space is good, and both extraterrestrials assure him that it is, being willing to prove it. Using terrestrial ingredients, Lala goes to cook, which ends in an explosion and a final product of a dark gelatinous substance that has a life of its own. Forced to try it, Rito takes a spoonful that tastes so bad it sends him to the edge of unconsciousness. But before passing out, Haruna's spirit wakes him up. The princess apologizes for her terrible cooking and confesses it is her first time cooking, to which Zastan explains that her royal servants used to cook for her. However, out of fear of the battlefields, the boy seizes this opportunity and dramatically tells her that he refuses to marry her if her cooking is bad. Everyone is surprised to hear this, but the boy stands firm, asserting that he wishes to eat delicious food from the woman he loves. With that declaration, Lala rises quickly and flies back to her ship to return to her planet, taking the commander with her. Mikan scolds him for what he did, but he convinces her that it is for the better. However, after a day, despite thinking it was good that she had left, he does not want it to be their farewell, so he begins to worry about her. Suddenly, the princess appears in the middle of the class and drags the boy with her to show him that she brought him a space refrigerator that has food from her planet. Nonetheless, there, Rito decides to be honest and tells her that he does not want want to fight in wars. The girl immediately dismisses that and simply says he can send generals to do it for him, just as her father has been doing for the last few years, a detail that Zastan forgot to mention. But then she expresses how happy she was to hear that he loved her, which is why she wants to cook for him. Then she changes into a very suggestive apron outfit, almost altering the young man's senses, and gets to work in her kitchen. While that happens, Haruna, who has been looking for them, finds them in the laboratory. Confused, she asks why they are hiding there when class is still in session, and Lala explains that she is preparing food for Rito because he mentioned once that he wanted to eat a homemade meal from someone he loves. Her direct answer leaves the young woman stunned, while the boy panics and agitates desperately trying to explain himself. She then asks him to tell her the truth of what is happening, and he wants to do so, but before he can, Haruna detects something moving inside the alien refrigerator, and to everyone's horror, a monstrous marine creature emerges. The monster scares the young woman so much that she faints on the spot, but the creature sees the girl on the floor and decides to get aggressive. The protagonist and Lala try to do something but end up being captured as well. In that instant, Zastan enters dramatically determined to rescue his princess, only to be instantly attacked by another similar creature coming from the refrigerator. The two monsters fight each other to see who keeps whom, but it becomes even more chaotic when a giant crustacean appears wanting to join the dispute, ending with the whole place trashed. A few days later, the wealthiest girl in school, Saki, returns after an absence, immediately capturing people's attention, and she is more than happy to have the boys look at her with admiration. But her confidence takes a hit the moment the young men suddenly shift their focus toward Lala, and seeing that everyone is more interested in the princess leaves her intrigued. However, she dismisses it and insists that nobody could surpass her. As the day progresses, the same thing happens when, in the hallway, Lala accidentally tears her clothes, involuntarily capturing attention once again, which makes Saki believe she is trying to stand out deliberately. Later in the library, the princess falls on top of Rito, making people want to witness some compromising action on the floor of the place, and the rival's patience runs out completely. Decided to settle things, she sends her followers to deliver a challenge letter to Lala, inviting her to a public beauty duel, seeing this as the perfect opportunity to remove her from her path and remain as the sole queen of the school. When the contest begins, Saki reveals her majestic white swimsuit before the enthusiastic crowd, determined to defeat her opponent once and for all. However, Lala never shows up, leaving her confused and upset. At first, she assumes her rival must be too embarrassed to appear, convinced that victory is already hers. But when she hears the students eagerly waiting for the princess instead of focusing on her, Saki sends her companions to reprimand those students. One of her followers suggests attracting Lala by involving her fiancé, and the plan is set in motion immediately. Shortly after, Rito arrives at the beauty contest, and Saki's allies use a crane to lift him up as a hostage, claiming they will expose him in front of everyone if the princess does not appear. But at that moment, Lala and Zastan appear chasing the girl's dog and crash into Saki, while sending the protagonist crashing into the event's seafood buffet. Furious, she lashes out at the alien, but things get worse when the canine ruins her outfit, forcing her to retreat humiliated. After the incident, Saki becomes obsessed with getting revenge, so she sends her followers to secretly observe the couple, hoping to discover something useful. And during their investigation, they become convinced that Lala is hiding a big secret from the rest of the school. Hearing that, the rival decides to personally expose whatever it is the princess is hiding. So that night, they sneak into Rito's house, but their plan goes wrong immediately when they accidentally activate the security system, triggering a series of strange defensive measures that cause the group to panic. Despite the chaos, Saki manages to get inside and finally finds herself hiding inside Lala's room. She waits patiently for the perfect opportunity to discover the truth, but while hiding, she accidentally presses a button on the wall, causing the room to shake. Downstairs, the young man and the others notice the disturbance and run upstairs, only to witness the entire bedroom rise like a rocket. And Zastan quickly explains that he installed an emergency escape system in Lala's room to protect her in dangerous situations. Meanwhile, high in the sky, Saki completely loses her composure and begs the princess to stop the flying room. Not knowing what to do, the alien begins pressing random buttons on the control panel, making things worse by accidentally activating weapons that begin firing everywhere, even toward the commander when he tries to help. Moments later, the windows suddenly open and Saki is ejected from the room, and as she falls freely fearing the worst, she tells herself that this is her end. But before it ends for her, Lala flies after her, and the young woman sees how kind she actually is. However, when she regains consciousness, she realizes she is alive, but that the dog took her clothes, so she curses the princess for this. A week later, Zastan detects an unidentified spaceship heading straight for Earth, and although he could easily handle it, he lets it pass and decides instead to test the protagonist to see how he handles this. The strange alien lands on campus and begins tracking Lala following her space trail, which leads him to her classroom. Inside, he sees the class preparing to dissect a frog, and Lala comments that she is more curious to understand Rito instead, so she begins chasing him, wanting to examine him. The visitor quickly realizes that the boy is the princess's fiancé, which makes him jealous, but he notices that the young man has his eyes set on Haruna and concludes that he has feelings for her. Just then, the school principal appears to confront him, and upon hearing his position in the school, the creature uses his shape-shifting powers to copy the principal's appearance, knocks him unconscious, and drags him away. Disguised as the principal, the being approaches Haruna and tricks her into following him to the gym storehouse. Meanwhile, outside the classroom, Rito and Lala remain caught up in their usual antics. Using the disguise, the creature has a message delivered to the young man claiming that Haruna is waiting for him in the storehouse, and thinking he will have an intimate encounter, the boy heads there immediately. However, upon arriving, he finds his beloved trapped and unconscious with the fake principal standing nearby. Shocked, the protagonist demands an explanation, only for the principal to transform back into the creature. The alien reveals that he believes he is the right partner for Lala, and insists that the young man must end his engagement. As Rito hesitates, the creature threatens to harm his sister if he refuses, forcing him to choose. At that moment, the princess uses a device to track him, and is surprised to find the creature there, who boldly asks her to marry him, threatening Haruna if she refuses. Lala rejects him immediately, clarifying that she has no interest in him, which infuriates the creature, so he grows larger to look more intimidating. The young man tells the princess to focus on helping Haruna, while he takes care of the alien and, showing bravery, lunges at the being, only to discover that despite looking terrifying, he is a complete coward and quickly returns to his pathetic real form. The boy notices right away that the creature's power lies mainly in deception and intimidation rather than actual strength. So with the danger gone, the crisis is finally resolved. But looking at the unconscious Haruna, he gets very nervous, so he quickly leaves the room and asks Lala to handle the rest. Later, the young woman wakes up in the infirmary with few memories of what happened, and when she asks what occurred, the princess informs her that she fainted earlier due to anemia and that Rito was the one who came to help her, which makes her smile shyly. A few days later, while rushing to school, the protagonist notices a very attractive girl standing by the roadside and wonders why someone so beautiful is wearing a male school uniform. He tries to speak with her, but since he is already running late, he quickly continues on his way. Later that day, the class introduces a new exchange student named Ren, and when he enters the room, the girls are dazzled by how attractive and charming he is. Suddenly, Ren walks straight toward Lala's desk and dramatically announces that he has finally reunited with his future wife. Then he boldly declares to Rito that he intends to win the princess back. However, she simply looks at him with confusion and asks who that individual is, completely deflating his confidence. Trying to recover, Ren quickly pulls out an old childhood photograph of them together, and once Lala sees it, she remembers him immediately. Upon seeing the image, the protagonist and his friend, Kenichi, ask the newcomer why he dressed like a girl, and he explains that when he was younger, people often dressed him like that due to his naturally feminine appearance, and Lala was always the one who teased him. But since she once jokingly told him she would consider marrying him if he became more masculine, he set it as a personal goal to transform into the ideal man. Now that he is older and much more confident, Ren has arrived to prove he has accomplished exactly that. After classes, he begins competing obsessively with Rito in every possible way, convinced that proving his manhood will win over the princess in all aspects. Eventually, he asks Lala directly what she thinks of his efforts, but she simply says she is not convinced he is masculine enough for her. Completely baffled, Ren turns to the protagonist to ask a question, who is in the middle of imagining that the princess leaves him for the newcomer and sets him free for Haruna. But before he can ask, he is pushed and they accidentally kiss. After finding privacy, Ren demands to know why Lala accepted someone like him instead, and Rito points out that constantly trying to compete with others has nothing to do with true masculinity, which leaves the rival stunned. Unsure of what it actually means to be manly, Ren decides to conduct his own research by asking several girls what qualities they find attractive or admirable in a man. After compiling their answers, he drastically reinvents himself based on the feedback, resulting in an exaggerated type of attitude. When he proudly presents himself to the princess, she frankly tells him that he looks funny rather than masculine. That night, while walking home, Ren stumbles upon a movie centered on the ideals of strength and masculinity. Inspired by what he sees, he becomes convinced that the secret to becoming the ultimate man is to have his own intense training. Over time, his dedication gains public attention, and he even becomes somewhat famous for his extreme discipline and athletic achievements. Seeing how far things have escalated, Rito jokingly suggests that perhaps Lala should recognize Ren's masculinity and put an end to the whole matter. However, in the rival's mind, he still has not reached the absolute peak of manhood, so he continues training, constantly setting new goals and taking on more severe challenges. Finally, Ren enters a grueling phase of hard work and perseverance filled with bouts and competitions, and completes it. At the final ceremony of his journey, Lala is invited to the stage so she can finally give him the validation he has been waiting to hear for years. But just as she is about to speak, Ren suddenly sneezes and, to everyone's surprise, transforms into a beautiful girl, the same one the protagonist saw earlier. As it turns out, Ren has a rare condition that causes a total gender swap every time he sneezes, leaving the crowd speechless. A few days later, Lala waits for Rito one morning and sees that he is taking too long. She activates a magnetic device to instantly attract him to her location, and the sudden force sends the boy flying toward her, causing him to crash directly into Haruna and show her underwear. He ends up being slapped, but before he can recover, Ren suddenly appears and gets involved too, demanding that he give her another kiss. Then, Saki and her followers show up, adding more mess to the situation. At that moment, Yui, a strict member of the school's disciplinary committee, witnesses the chaos and intervenes immediately. Outraged by the lack of order and the constant trouble surrounding the protagonist, she demands that everyone calm down. However, nobody listens to the disciplined young woman, and they continue making things worse when Lala loses her clothes and causes Yui to fall unconscious. After recovering, Yui becomes convinced that Rito is somehow responsible for all the mess and inappropriate incidents that constantly occur at school, considering that all the girls seem involved with him. Believing he is the source of the problem, she takes action by helping to implement a stricter set of school rules focused on discipline and proper conduct, and the whole school begins to adjust to the new regulations. Students are expected to behave more formally, follow stricter dress standards, and avoid disruptive behavior. While many students complain about the sudden restrictions, Yui stands firm in her belief that this is necessary. When Lala hears the girls complaining about long skirts, she introduces heart-shaped gadgets to help them. When the disciplinary officer sees them, she confiscates them, but the device activates and causes all her garments to become short. Suddenly, the princess's magnetic device activates again and accidentally launches the boy straight toward Yui, creating another misunderstanding. Fed up, Yui reports the situation to the eccentric principal and forbids the young man from speaking to girls for 2 weeks, believing he is the root of the problem. During this time, many boys try to approach Lala in Rito's absence, and to his own surprise, the protagonist feels jealous. Meanwhile, Yui feels satisfied with her action, convinced that the problem is solved. But then she sees another incident where girls end up in a compromising situation, even without the boys' participation, which makes her reconsider her theory. Intrigued, she begins to secretly observe the young man during his period of isolation to better understand his behavior. To her surprise, she discovers that he is actually quite responsible, calm, and considerate when he is alone. One day, Rito notices a lost child and immediately stops to help him find his parents. Seeing this, Yui decides to assist him, and working together gives her a completely different perspective of him. By the end of the day, she begins to take an interest in him and admits that her first impression was wrong. Suddenly, Lala activates her magnetic device, and it attracts the boy toward her while Yui is in his arms, causing chaos in their path and ending up knocked down on the floor of a restaurant. The next day, with his restriction lifted, the couple walks together to school, but one of the girls' inventions causes another accident right in front of Yui, making her lose her patience once again. Sometime later, an alien traveler arrives on Earth going to different places with the goal of finding Lala. Around the same time, Rito suddenly has a bad feeling that something is approaching and suspects he got sick, so he goes to the school infirmary to receive treatment. But upon arriving, the nurse is nowhere to be found. Seeing that, the princess decides to intervene herself by changing into a nurse outfit and insisting that the young man lie down so she can take his temperature using her forehead, and tries to care for him in exaggerated ways to relieve him. Just then, the attractive school nurse, Mikado, enters, and after everyone calms down, she properly treats the boy and determines that he is fine. However, despite not being sick, the young man's sneezing does not stop, and at that moment the alien looking for Lala finally appears after crashing nearby. He introduces himself as Pika Ri from the planet Kirarara and immediately questions whether Rito is truly Lala's fiancé, claiming that someone ordinary should not be with her. Offended by the insult, the protagonist responds that the visitor's suit looks low quality, and upset by his words, the newcomer launches an attack, forcing the princess to quickly pull the boy out of the way. The rival then grabs Lala and tries to fly away with her, intending to take her. However, the princess calmly pulls out a tool and removes a critical component of his suit mid-flight, causing it to fail. The attacker immediately loses control and falls to the ground, while she escapes unharmed. Pika Ri is left stranded and distressed, realizing he is almost helpless without his specialized suit. But while remembering his parents at home, he bumps into Ren, who recognizes that he is also an alien. The visitor asks for help to repair his equipment, and although Ren cannot fix it, promises to be a good citizen and help the one in need. Hours later, after repairing his equipment, the rival makes another attempt to retrieve Lala, but she comes prepared and punches him, sending him flying away. After another humiliation, the alien bumps into Zastin, who recognizes him and instead directs him to a secret clinic that specializes in treating extraterrestrials. Inside, he meets Mikado, who works there, and, seeing his condition, takes the patient to a treatment chamber and repairs him and his equipment. The next day, the insistent being makes a final effort to capture the princess, finding her once again with Rito in the infirmary, and manages to subdue them. But before he can take the girl away, the doctor appears at the perfect moment and neutralizes him before he causes more trouble in her workplace. With the enemy finally defeated, Lala sends him back to his home planet, ending that pursuit forever. Mikado then reveals that she knows the princess's princess's identity and that she too is an alien who specializes in medical care for extraterrestrial beings hiding or traveling on Earth. Days later, Rito dreams of Haruna giving him her affection in a very sweet way. But before waking up completely, he finds Lala by his side having a romantic dream about him, and for a moment, he is tempted to reciprocate but chooses not to. Later, while resting in the park, the young man spots the commander walking with a strange-looking alien and quickly notices they are heading to his home. Once they arrive, the visitor immediately runs inside and happily pounces on Lala, leaving Rito and Mikan surprised. But the princess cheerfully introduces the visitor as Stella, the former president of her fan club in Deviluk. Stella speaks enthusiastically about how adored the princess is on her home planet, explaining that her role was basically to handle the overwhelming number of fanatical fans obsessed with her. Curious about her sudden visit, Lala asks why she traveled all the way to Earth. The guest reveals that she was sent to take her back to their planet for an important project. But when the princess explains that she has no plans to return since her love interest is on Earth, Stella freezes in shock, like someone losing their greatest illusion. Hours later, the fan finally recovers and, upon regaining her composure, immediately directs her frustration toward Rito, blaming him for becoming Lala's interest without her approval. The newcomer firmly states that if he is going to interfere with her plans, then he has to make up for it. Wishing to change this, she drags the young man to the city with the new mission of finding her another attractive partner to replace the princess. And the boy cannot understand why she is suddenly desperate to look for cute girls. So she explains that she works in entertainment production and has been planning Lala's grand debut as a musical star. But since the princess clearly has no more interest in the idea, she now needs new talent. The protagonist uncomfortably points to random girls they cross paths with on the street, but the producer rejects each one without hesitation, stating that none have what she is looking for. Then, as if detecting something, Stella focuses in one direction and runs, forcing the young man to chase her. There, they find Haruna, and the representative immediately declares her as the perfect candidate to replace the princess. While Rito is horrified thinking they plan to force her to join a strange show, Stella ignores him and tries increasingly exaggerated methods to capture her, but the young man repeatedly steps in to protect her. In the chaos, the boy accidentally ends up in a very embarrassing position over her, resulting in him receiving a slap to the face. Completely abashed, Haruna flees quickly, leaving the protagonist suffering the consequences as usual. Later that night at Rito's house, Mikan asks the guest if her musical project is really something serious, and she confidently replies yes, listing with excitement all kinds of extravagant concepts and presentations she has planned, most of which involve Lala, Haruna, and Rito in some way, ending up with the latter as the aggrieved party. Before she can advance too far with her ideas, she suddenly receives an urgent call from her colleagues in Deviluk. They inform her that authorities have discovered her financial and tax problems, and she is ordered to return to the planet immediately. Fearful of the laws of her world, the producer is forced to leave, and the princess cheerfully bids her farewell as if nothing unusual had happened, while the young man is left staring at the damaged ceiling in frustration, wondering what kind of absurdity just occurred. A few days later, Rito is out buying groceries when he runs into Haruna, who is doing the same. Wishing to spend time with her, he asks if she needs help, and, wanting the same, she answers yes. During the next few hours, they share time together, enjoying this quality moment until they part ways. On the way home, the young man buys himself a traditional sweet to eat and spots a girl with blonde hair and a dark style watching him. Thinking she is hungry, he offers her some, and when she tastes it, she comments that the food on Earth tastes very good. Hearing that, the boy knows right away that something is wrong, and the girl suddenly steps closer and softly pronounces his name. Before he can react, she instantly pulls out a sharp tool and lunges at him, but the young man barely manages to dodge the blow. The young woman coldly explains that she was hired to eliminate him, making him enter total panic. Without wasting another second, he stands up and runs down the street while she pursues him relentlessly. After narrowly avoiding several attacks, Rito hides behind a wall thinking he is finally safe, but the blonde exterminator smashes through the wall and approaches him as if it were his end. But just when she is about to attack him, Zastan appears and intercepts the blow. The two begin to fight, and both Lala and Mikado appear, with the doctor explaining that the opponent, known as Yami, possesses the ability to transform any part of her body into different weapons, making her an especially dangerous rival. When the young man desperately asks her for help, the nurse simply shrugs and says she will gladly attend to whoever survives. Meanwhile, during their fight, the commander tries to look sophisticated and trips, falling into the drainage channels, leaving the combat. Without the military man in the way, Yami resumes her mission and advances toward the protagonist, but Lala suddenly intervenes, declaring that she will have to go through her first. While the hunter uses her combat skills, the princess employs her ingenious inventions in rapid succession, trying to keep her busy. When they reach the urban area, the school principal sees Yami and begins to express how much he would like to court her, but the girl feels so disgusted that she gets distracted, giving Lala an opportunity to trap her. Although the skilled young woman quickly frees herself, she questions why the princess protects Rito, arguing that he should be considered a threat to her planet since he is on his way to getting involved with its government. However, However, Lala firmly believes the boy is a good person, and her words make Yami briefly remember the previous moment when he offered her his food. Although she admits the young man might be kind, she insists that a mission is still a mission. Suddenly, a spaceship appears from which an individual named Lacaspo descends, whom the princess recognizes immediately as the person who hired Yami in the first place. Jealous of the protagonist's closeness to Lala, he admits he wanted to remove the young man from the way so he could marry her instead, but she rejects him immediately, saying she would never agree to marry someone like him. Enraged by her refusal, the subject orders Yami to finish off Rito, but she refuses upon realizing that he had lied to her about the boy from the beginning. Desperate, the spurned suitor summons a giant amphibious creature against which the skilled blonde fights with difficulty due to the creature's fluids that damage garments. The monster manages to impact the couple, but the young man gets upset and punches the instigator, which enrages the small alien. But at that moment, Lala gets fed up and delivers a series of blunt blows, leaving him out of combat. Afterward, Yami asks the princess why she chose to help her, and she answers that it was not her fault in the first place. Plus, she refuses to let a cute girl be used. Hearing that, the blonde is baffled and makes an excuse, announcing that she will remain on Earth until she finishes her goal of getting rid of the boy. A few days later, the school's sports festival begins, and Rito already imagines himself winning and impressing Haruna. However, when the event starts, the first game is a scavenger hunt, and the young man is assigned to get a female intimate garment, which he notes as an impossible task. Wishing to help him, Lala activates her small robots to locate one, and the machines launch the protagonist directly toward Haruna, ending with him getting what he was looking for, along with a slap to the face. The next event is the girls' obstacle race. During this, Yui starts strong, but her first obstacle involves a familiar situation that makes her stop dead in her tracks. Haruna goes next, only to be surprised when a woman with a baby appears claiming it belongs to her partner, leaving her so shocked that she is eliminated instantly. Saki's challenge consists of an officer informing her that her suitor was sentenced to prison, which completely ends her motivation. Meanwhile, Lala faces debt collectors, but because she is a wealthy princess who has no notion of debts, she defeats them without effort and completes the circuit with ease. After that, it is the mixed relay's turn, and the protagonist is nervous because he has to hand the baton to Haruna after having been slapped earlier. During the race, wearing armor, Ren passes the baton to Rito, but in the process the boy slips and his accessory falls to the ground, shaking the terrain and almost making the protagonist fall into a crack in the field. Haruna stretches out to help him, but the young man grabs the wrong place and earns another slap that sends him flying away. After that, the cavalry battle begins, and Rito is assigned to carry Haruna on his back, which makes him more nervous since he assumes she still dislikes him. Just before the match begins, Saki pulls out a remote control and transforms the arena into a large pool, turning the event into a water battle. There, everyone changes into swimsuits, and the rival sends flying devices designed to damage Lala's outfit and humiliate her. But every time she suffers damage, Peak restores it instantly, frustrating the organizer even more. She increases the speed of the machines, making the arena even more chaotic. But in the middle of the mess, the princess takes advantage of the situation and takes Saki's cap, winning the match. The defeated girl refuses to accept the result and immediately demands a rematch. Then, out of anger, she throws a large object straight toward the winners. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, Rito sincerely apologizes to Haruna for all the uncomfortable situations she had to endure, and she is ready to forgive him when the object thrown by Saki crashes through the wall, sending the young man falling directly on top of his beloved once again, completely ruining the moment. Meanwhile, on the planet Devoluc, its ruler, Gid Lucione Devoluc, effortlessly defeats an entire warrior faction like it is nothing. Then, on Earth, Zaston informs the group that the king of Devoluc is coming to visit. After quickly concluding another space campaign, the monarch apparently decides to spend his free time supervising the human who could become his future son-in-law. So he warns the young man to stay alert since the sovereign might be watching him. The next day, Rito heads to school, imagining all kinds of terrifying scenarios involving the king. He tells himself that being honest is probably the safest approach, but quickly realizes that he still does not fully understand what he feels for Lala, which is a problem. At school, he tries to keep a low profile, but fate decides to complicate things for him when Saki launches another attempt to capture him. However, her plan fails, and Yui ends up tied up instead. The boy runs to help, but finds the bonds extremely tight. There, the princess appears with high-tech space scissors, but although they easily cut the ropes, they also accidentally damage the affected girl's garments. Panicking, the young man quickly jumps in front of her to cover her and spare her an embarrassment, just when Haruna throws a garment over the scene to help contain the disaster. Without them knowing, someone mysterious watches from afar. Later, Rito is assigned to cleanup duties with Haruna and sees this as a rare opportunity to spend quiet time with her. But before he can tell her anything meaningful, he is suddenly summoned to the rooftop through the school loudspeakers. Upon arriving, Mikado tells him that someone is waiting for him, and the young man finds himself with a stranger who immediately confronts him with evidence of his countless misunderstandings with beautiful girls, leaving him completely speechless. He tries to defend defend himself, but the woman suddenly acts in a very suggestive way with him. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupts them. The woman instantly collapses, and a small, peculiar-looking being appears. At first, the protagonist assumes it is just a lost visitor, but he quickly realizes that this being is actually the king of Deviluk, Lala's father. The monarch immediately questions the boy, criticizing him for always being surrounded by women and demanding to know what he really intends to do for his daughter. He asks him directly if he has feelings for her, and when Rito cannot answer, the sovereign feels disappointed. He then decides that Earth is not worth it and casually prepares to destroy the planet. But right before a catastrophe occurs, the princess appears and begs her father to stop. She passionately defends the young man, praising his kindness, and confesses that she truly loves him. Seeing how much his daughter cares for the boy, the king changes his mind and forgives both him and the planet. However, before leaving, he gives the young man a clear warning that if he intends to stay with Lala, he must become worthy of her by becoming the strongest man in the universe. That night, Rito stays awake thinking about everything that happened. Overwhelmed but determined, he finally makes a decision. The next day, he meets with Zastan and the others to announce that he is going to work hard to become the main man. The following day, the young man decides it is time to act like a true protagonist, but he has no idea where to start. While thinking about it, he notices a soccer ball and briefly imagines excelling in the sport. But knowing his limited physical endurance, he lowers his expectations and decides to go for a run instead. But after advancing barely a short distance, the boy is completely exhausted and collapses on a park bench, struggling to recover. While trying to catch his breath, he notices Haruna nearby walking her pet. Seeing him in such poor condition, she checks on him and ends up encouraging him in his sudden effort to improve himself. Then, when the young man gets home, he keeps this new routine a secret and tells Lala nothing. But with Haruna, he exchanges looks knowing they now share a little secret. As the days pass, Rito continues running every afternoon, determined to keep improving, and the young woman begins to appear regularly too, bringing him snacks and words of encouragement. One day, it starts to rain and the boy still goes out to train, motivated by the possibility of seeing her. His determination surprises her, and that day she asks him if he plans to run again on Sunday, mentioning that she wants to prepare a homemade lunch for him, which excites the young man. Then, Sunday finally arrives, the boy finishes his route, and she presents him with a carefully prepared homemade lunch. However, the young woman's pet suddenly jumps into a nearby canal, and the protagonist dives in without hesitation, managing to rescue the animal. Completely soaked, Rito is taken to Haruna's house where she lets him use the bathroom. Afterward, he changes as quickly as possible, coming out of the bathroom covered only with a towel. She then tells him to wait in her room while she prepares tea. Alone in the room, the young man begins to look around and notices several old photographs from the young woman's previous school days. To his surprise, he notices that he appears in many of them, revealing that Haruna has noticed him since much earlier than he thought. At that instant, the sound of a boiling container distracts the young woman, making her run out of the room, and at the same time, the boy loses his balance and accidentally falls straight on top of her. At that precise moment, the young woman's sister enters and witnesses the scene, and to make matters worse, the young man's towel comes off at the worst moment. With that, the protagonist panics and runs out of the house as fast as he can, leaving behind nothing but mess and embarrassment once again. Days later, Zastan suddenly arrives at the couple's school and everyone is surprised to see him, but the commander quickly informs Lala that urgent royal matters require her presence immediately. It is only then that the rest of the school learns the truth that she is not just an unusual exchange student, but an authentic alien princess. However, instead of getting scared, everyone is even more fascinated by her, to the boy's surprise. Without losing time, the military man takes the princess aboard his spaceship and heads to outer space, taking the protagonist and Haruna along too. During the trip, they learn that an important political figure named Lord Carter, a close ally of the royal family, is nearby, and as part of her responsibilities, Lala must formally meet with him and represent her planet. When they arrive at the authorities' ship, the host greets them warmly and invites the princess to dance. During their conversation, he casually mentions his plans to visit Earth for a hunting expedition, and remembering what the king demanded of him, Rito sees this as an opportunity to prove his worth and volunteers to join the hunt. Although the host doubts the young man's skill, he agrees to let him participate since he is technically Lala's fiancé and the representative of Earth, but establishes that the boy must follow their rules and use the equipment provided by his crew. Then everyone heads to a dense jungle, and the moment the protagonist arrives, he is greeted by the sight of massive insects, giant creatures, and prehistoric-looking fauna roaming the area. Suddenly, Haruna gets separated from the group and is cornered by a giant creature trying to attack her. Rito tries to protect her immediately, but his weak attempts barely affect the creature, and just when all seems lost, a volley of arrows interrupts the confrontation. A tribe of warrior women appears and captures the boy, taking him away while Haruna is transported elsewhere by the large creature. The young man is brought before the tribe's leader, who seems interested in keeping him. Before things get worse, Lala suddenly appears and firmly declares that the boy already belongs to her, unleashing a battle between her and the warriors. However, the princess is temporarily weakened after one of the fighters grabs her tail, exposing a major vulnerability. But before the situation becomes critical, Haruna returns in a surprising way, riding the same giant creature from before, now completely subdued. The young woman orders the being to direct its attention toward the tribe, and not wanting to face the danger, the warriors decide to retreat. Lord Carter, who has been watching the whole adventure, is impressed by Haruna's unexpected ability to tame the strongest creature in the jungle. Back aboard his ship, he formally names her the best hunter in the universe. He rewards her with a large golden trophy, while Rito can only watch with disappointment, as he had hoped to be the one to win that title. The next morning, Haruna wakes up believing the whole experience might have been a strange dream, but when she notices the gleaming golden trophy, she realizes everything that happened in the jungle was completely real. A few weeks later, during the summer season, the group spends the day at an amusement park with a large pool. Lala gets extremely excited since it is her first time visiting a place like this, and while the others enjoy the water and the attractions, Ren discreetly observes from a distance, as seeing the protagonist laughing and spending time with so many girls only makes her feel more excluded. After several failed attempts to catch his attention in the past, Ren is more determined than ever to make Rito finally notice her, and her first strategy is a watery surprise. But the plan fails almost immediately. Refusing to give up, she continues following the boy through the park, and when he goes to buy ice cream for Lala and Haruna, Ren suddenly lunges from behind. The surprise makes the young man trip, sending the ice creams through the air and accidentally splashing nearby, to the annoyance of Yui and Yami. As the day continues, the suitor becomes increasingly convinced that the other girls are the reason she cannot get close to the protagonist, so she begins to devise plans to make them uncomfortable, hoping it will somehow improve her own chances. However, each attempt backfires, leaving the young man trapped in the middle while the girls escape unaffected. Running out of ideas, Ren reveals a final strategy by releasing special space fish that damage fabrics, and the creatures quickly begin to cause a mess, messing up the girls' outfits. But the princess responds by using one of her inventions to capture them all with a net launcher. While collecting the fish, Rito notices something strange in the water, and there the group discovers that it is actually Ren, camouflaged among the animals. With nowhere to hide, she admits that all her ridiculous actions were motivated by her feelings toward the boy, and the girls immediately misinterpret the situation, thinking he has been involved with her in secret, but the young man loudly denies having anything to do with it. His direct reaction ends up hurting Ren's feelings, making her leave in frustration. Later, she wanders alone and accidentally encounters a boy trying to impress her. When he offers to buy her food, he quickly regrets it after she orders enough to leave him without funds. Then Ren stumbles upon a performance by some artists and, motivated by the attention they receive, suddenly decides that becoming famous might make the protagonist notice her. She asks one of the school teachers to help her train, and the process ends with him assisting her intense practice sessions. However, the grueling training becomes too much, and the teacher begs to be released from his new responsibilities. She gets discouraged, but quickly changes her ambitions and decides that swimsuit modeling might be a better path instead. Meanwhile, Haruna informs Rito that the other young woman's behavior might simply be the result of genuine feelings for him, and that his harsh words earlier probably hurt her more than he noticed. Feeling guilty, the boy immediately goes to look for her, finding her in the middle of being bothered by a group of individuals. Although the protagonist steps in to protect her, he struggles to handle the situation on his own, but Lala arrives just in time and uses another of her inventions to scare the subjects away. Afterward, Ren thanks them both for helping her, and the young man also sincerely apologizes for speaking to her so harshly before. Although her plans have failed so far, she confidently declares that she has no intention of giving up on winning Rito's heart. Days later, a rumor arises that a ghost haunts the nearby abandoned school building, and Haruna appears nervous upon hearing it, but the princess immediately feels curious and wants to investigate for herself. Her friend has no interest in going near the place, but after encouragement from her classmates, she agrees to join the night search. The boy hears this and decides to go, knowing she is scared and wanting to accompany her. Then they head to the old building and are surprised to find the entrance open. Inside, they hear an unusual noise, and, trying to act brave, Rito goes to investigate only to discover it is simply Yami sitting in a corner reading a pile of old books. But before anyone relaxes, another strange sound echoes through the building. This time it turns out to be Yui, who secretly followed everyone after hearing the ghost rumors. At this point, the group begins to assume the apparition is probably fake, but suddenly a loud, mysterious voice orders them to leave immediately. Before they can react, the floor beneath collapses, sending everyone falling to the lower level. Then a piano suddenly begins to play by itself and somehow moves on its own, chasing them around the room. The blonde quickly transforms her arm into a sharp tool and destroys it, putting an end to the mess. Suddenly, strange figures appear and begin chasing the group while demanding they withdraw. Most of the girls faint from fright, leaving only the princess and Yami conscious. Unlike the others, Lala feels more curiosity than fear. During the chase, one of the figures trips and crashes into a water pipe, causing high pressure that knocks Peak off the princess's head, making her outfit temporarily disappear before her robot quickly restores it. Then, the truth is revealed when small alien creatures come out from inside the costumes and combine to form a large monster. The princess and Yami Yami counterattack immediately, but the creature proves more difficult than expected. Just when the situation seems complex, Haruna regains consciousness and sees the monster looming over everyone. Acting on instinct, she grabs Rito and uses him as a makeshift defense, managing to strike the creature with enough force to defeat it. After the chaos calms down, everyone learns that the supposed ghosts are actually aliens from different planets with nowhere else to go, who have been living in secret inside the abandoned building. Afterward, Mikado arrives and offers to help the visitors find work and settle on Earth. Relieved that the mystery is solved, the young man thinks the night is finally over until a real apparition appears. The spirit introduces herself as Oshizu, a girl who passed away hundreds of years ago and has been haunting the building ever since. She explains that she is actually happy the aliens are leaving since their noisy nighttime activities constantly interrupted her. Meanwhile, the doctor tries to help the visitors find employment elsewhere, but after constantly failing, they return to the abandoned building. Seeing that, Oshizu offers to help them by teaching them manners, presentation skills, and other useful talents she learned long ago, and they accept her offer knowing they need to find stable occupations. A week later, a large package from outer space arrives at the school and is delivered to Mikado. Although it is addressed to Lala, everyone nearby is curious. The doctor calls the princess, and shortly after, Rito and Kenichi follow them to the rooftop to see what is them. Inside, there, the owner opens the package, and a large, feline-looking creature jumps out and tries to attack her immediately. Peak quickly explains that the being was sent by someone with a mission to eliminate the princess, and she dodges its attacks. Suddenly, the creature stops, holding its belly in discomfort, and they realize it is about to give birth. Without losing time, the protagonist and his friend move the creature to the infirmary, and since the doctor is not there, the companion stays behind to help care for it. As the being goes through labor, he tries to comfort her, helping her stay calm in the process. After several exhausting hours, the creature safely gives birth and, as things calm down, apologizes to the princess. She admits she only accepted the mission because she urgently needed resources to support her future offspring, and Lala forgives her immediately, offering her a gift from Earth as a souvenir and asking if there is anything else she would like. To everyone's surprise, the visitor requests to take Kenichi, and he loudly refuses the idea. Later, Rito jokes that his friend could be a good representative of Earth, suggesting he might even enjoy life on another planet. But the one referred to flees in panic. The princess chases him through the school hallways trying to convince him. When the rest of his friends find out about the situation, they show concern about the idea of sending the young man away. After catching up to him, Lala presents the NEET student before the alien mother, and she cheerfully suggests that the boy could be a father figure for her offspring, which the princess considers an excellent idea. But before deciding anything, the mother asks if the young man already has a partner, explaining that she would never want to take him away if he already had someone important in his life. Hearing this, Kenichi suddenly claims that he does indeed have someone and then flees again before anyone can question him. Later, Mikado returns to the infirmary and is informed of the peculiar situation that just happened. Meanwhile, the boy desperately asks the protagonist to help him find a real girlfriend to support his claim, and both spend the day approaching girls to be his partner, only to be rejected due to the interested party's attitude. Completely exhausted and discouraged, the young man sits alone until Haruna approaches and kindly asks him what is wrong. In a moment of desperation, he abruptly asks her to go out together. In that instant, Rito quickly steps between them out of instinct, but gets bewildered when he notices what he just did. But then an idea occurs to the protagonist, and he suggests that his friend could simply claim his partner is a pet. He takes him back to the infirmary to continue the plan, only to discover that the mother and her offspring have already left after Lala took them to the rooftop for their departure. It turns out the doctor advised the visitor not to depend on someone else for her future, but to be independent and raise her offspring under her own terms. Motivated by this, the alien chose to return home. Before leaving, she left a sincere message wishing the young man happiness for the future, which moves the boy to tears upon noticing that someone took an interest in him. Days later, the princess watches the news about the hot spring season and asks the protagonist to take her, but he explains that there are no natural springs close enough to visit. Instead of giving up, she comes up with her own solution to build one herself. She hands money to the young man and sends him to buy her a drink while she makes the preparations. On his way back from the store, the boy is suddenly ambushed by Yami, but to her surprise, he manages to dodge her attack, impressing her enough to comment on how much more agile he has become lately. Curious, she asks where Lala is, and at that moment, several of the princess's friends pass by, and the young man casually mentions to them that she is currently making her own hot spring. When the protagonist returns home, Lala proudly reveals excavation machinery specifically designed to search for underground springs. Shortly after, Haruna and the others arrive after hearing the news. Yami brings Mikado with her, and Kenichi appears too, eager to join. Everyone boards the large machine, and as it drills deeper into the subsoil, the structure breaks into a huge underground cavern filled with colorful natural springs. Delighted by her success, the princess names the area the Rainbow Underground Hot Springs. Unfortunately for the boys, the young women immediately decide to separate the bathing areas. Rito, his friend, and the others are left with a much smaller spring awkwardly located inside a tight space. The companion refuses to accept this arrangement, so he sneaks away and jumps into one of the larger springs, happily enjoying himself despite the girl's complaints. Then, he heads to where the doctor is resting in the water, and the attractive woman invites the boys to join her, but also warns them that the water temperature is too intense for normal humans, so they refuse to enter. Then they try to join Yami's space, but she refuses to share and ejects them far away. Meanwhile, on the surface, Lala tells Haruna that she wishes to create a special private spring just for the two of them in the backyard. While the princess continues digging, her friend waits nearby, but hears the protagonist's voice in the vicinity and calls him over, admitting she feels a bit lonely and asking him to accompany her. However, the princess's excavation goes a bit too far and accidentally breaks a layer of volcanic material, unleashing a disastrous reaction. Nearby elevations begin to erupt and thermal fluid begins to flood the underground area. Noticing the danger, everyone runs back to the excavator to escape. By the time the group finally gets out, their hot spring adventure has escalated from a simple backyard project to a total underground disaster once again. On another day, the couple decides to watch a weekly show about a young woman with magical powers named Kyoko, and in her universe, she faces a peculiar opponent with a particular style. But this individual does not cause serious harm to people, but instead tries to dominate the surroundings by granting extravagant hairstyles to everyone. After an episode full of secondary situations, Kyoko emerges victorious, saving the environment from transforming into a space of strange hairstyles and leaving the opponent hairless for the common good. On this day, Mikado introduces the couple to a magazine editor named Kimio, who specializes in travel publications aimed at space visitors and is currently looking for interesting and safe destinations on Earth to recommend. Seeing the boy and the princess struggling to suggest a place, the editor proposes that instead of looking for one, they build a lodging specifically designed for alien guests. The suggestion immediately captures the protagonist's interest, and the doctor offers the abandoned school building as the location for the business. The young man remains unsure about taking on such a large project, but Lala enthusiastically promises to help with everything, which finally convinces him to try. Shortly after, the princess contacts Zaston and his assistants to help renovate the old building. After days of labor, the neglected place is now a suitable site built to house space travelers. As promised, Kimio arrives on opening day and records a promotional segment announcing the lodging to audiences across the galaxy. Shortly after, their first guests begin to arrive, and the boy works hard to ensure the visitors are comfortable. But because the rooms are configured to extremely high gravity levels, Lala hands the young man special protection before entering. Then, noticing that the place needs more staff, the protagonist tells the princess they cannot handle everything alone, so they recruit Yami, Oshizu, and Mikan to help with daily operations. The next day, after the departure of most guests, the young man assumes things have finally calmed down. But then a mysterious warrior arrives requesting accommodation for himself and several companions. The couple, wishing to be good hosts, offers them an entire floor without knowing that these warriors are actually dissidents planning actions against the Deviluk government. While the visitors secretly discuss their plans, Rito repeatedly interrupts them, trying to provide attentive service, unintentionally making their leader uncomfortable. Eventually, the person in charge loses patience and directly tells the boy to stop entering his room. Upon hearing this, Lala decides to personally bring tea to the group as a gesture of hospitality. The young man accompanies her, and together they accidentally discover the visitors examining detailed maps of her home planet. At first, the warriors assume these humans will not recognize what they are looking at, but the princess casually reveals she is originally from there by exhibiting her tail. Noticing that their plans were discovered, the leader attacks immediately, but Zaston arrives just in time, and a large battle breaks out inside the lodging. Yami eventually joins the fight to help turn the tide, and Lala pulls out one of her inventions, but instead of helping, the device fails and explodes. The blast abruptly ends the confrontation while completely destroying the newly opened lodging, and the editor is forced to announce to the galaxy that the Earth business has closed its doors almost immediately after opening. Meanwhile, Yami begins to reflect on everything that has happened since her arrival on Earth and realizes she wants a new direction in her life. So she decides it might be time to look for a formal occupation instead of continuing as before. At the same time, the school is busy preparing for the upcoming cultural festival, and Kenichi asks everyone to suggest ideas they truly enjoy. And after a debate, the class agrees to open an animal-themed cafe for the festival. Immediately adopting his role, the companion declares himself the producer of the project and enthusiastically suggests taking the girls' measurements for the outfits, but they quickly reject his uncomfortable idea and the boys are kicked out of the room. Then the young women take care of the outfit preparations themselves, while the boys waiting outside imagine what is happening inside. Elsewhere, Saki is equally focused on the festival, determined to ensure her class gets first place. Her followers point out that Lala's class seems to be their biggest competition, which motivates her even more. Meanwhile, Yami continues looking for employment but struggles to find something that suits her particular skills, which discourages her. As the festival approaches, the whole class dedicates itself to the preparations. The princess offers to speed things up using one of her inventions, but Rito kindly reminds reminds her that the true fun of a school festival comes from working together and making things by hand. His words reach Lala, so she decides not to depend on gadgets this time. Although most of the class shows enthusiasm as the festival nears, Yui still seems somewhat distant from the group activities. Noticing this, Haruna takes the time to explain that the festival is less about perfection and more about enjoying the experience together. After hearing this, the disciplinary officer finally begins to participate with more enthusiasm, allowing herself to feel included in the class effort. Just a few days before the event, the cafe is almost ready to open, but a student unexpectedly becomes unavailable, leaving the class short-staffed. Seeing an opportunity, Lala invites Yami to fill the position, and since she is still without an occupation, she accepts the offer. When the festival finally starts, the animal-themed cafe becomes one of the most popular attractions on campus, with visitors drawn to the eye-catching outfits worn by Lala, Haruna, and the other female classmates. Meanwhile, Saki's class fails notably with its insect proposal, since customers show no interest in sharing the space with that kind of fauna. By the end of the day, the princess's class clearly stands out, while Yami unexpectedly discovers that helping in the cafe is the most enjoyable activity she has found since she arrived on Earth. One morning, Kenichi notices that Rito somehow seems to attract the attention of many prominent girls at school and feels incredibly jealous, beginning to fantasize about what his own ideal life would be like. In his imagination, he visualizes himself as an influential ruler, residing in a large fortress surrounded by attention and comforts. At first, the fantasy seems perfect, but it quickly falls apart when, instead of ideal figures, his fortress fills up with space beings. Convinced that this must be some kind of nightmare, he desperately tries to wake up but somehow remains trapped inside the dream. As he wanders through the place, he discovers that absolutely nobody respects him. The staff of the place constantly ignores him, mocks him, and repeatedly makes his stay difficult. Then he wakes up and feels relieved to be back in the real world, but fate has not finished with him, and Lala suddenly activates a device that impacts the young man, sending him back to exactly the same nightmare. Once again, he finds himself trapped in this situation and is forced to endure the uncomfortable experience. Then, when he manages to wake up, the princess's invention activates again, returning him to the same scenario. On his third trip, he is treated as an offender and is carried from one mishap to another with no control over what happens. Like many strange dreams, the scenario changes without explanation. One moment, he is in the fortress, and the next he ends up in the sea, being chased by the same space beings from before. After experiencing a confusing situation of awareness levels, the young man wakes up for real, showing great agitation, and Lala walks away believing her invention seriously affected the boy's cognitive processes. A few days later, Rito notices that as soon as the princess wakes up, she begins to act shy and embarrassed about things that normally never bother her, leaving him confused by the sudden change in personality. Worried that something might be wrong, the young man checks her more closely and notices she has a fever, so he quickly takes her to the infirmary for a checkup. There, Mikado explains that the patient contracted something called reverse flu, a rare condition from space that temporarily alters the personality and behavior of whoever suffers from it. The boy is amazed that such a condition exists and immediately asks how it can be treated. The doctor tells him that a solution is available, but since it must be sent from space, it will take several days to arrive. She assures him that the princess is otherwise out of danger and also notes that humans are naturally immune to the virus, so he has nothing to worry about personally. That night, he accidentally enters the bathroom while she is there, and instead of acting casual as usual, she appears highly bewildered, surprising the young man by how drastically different she has become. However, the next day, the girl's behavior changes again, and this time she wakes the young man up with a completely different personality, enthusiastically dragging him to one of her extravagant exercise inventions and forcing him into an intense training session. Noticing that the condition causes increasingly unpredictable changes, Rito returns to the nurse to ask if the solution has arrived yet, but she tells him not yet. While there, the doctor teases him, pointing out that he seemed remarkably comfortable with the princess when she acted more reserved and sweet, which reminds him of Haruna and leaves him embarrassed. During the following days, Lala goes through a variety of completely different personalities, and with each version, the young man's life becomes more peculiar and chaotic. At one point, she adopts a strict style mentality and suddenly announces that she will help the protagonist master his surroundings first so he can begin his path toward becoming the main figure of the universe, someone who can relate to any lady. The boy tries to convince her that such action is unnecessary and a bad idea, but she refuses to listen and announces that her automated forces will launch the operation the next day at noon. Alarmed, Rito runs back to the nurse and desperately asks for the solution again, and she informs him that it is still delayed and will not arrive until the next day. The next morning, with time running out, the young man tries once more to reason with the princess, but the personality influenced by the condition remains committed to the plan. To make matters worse, she has convinced Kenichi and several others to support her efforts. Then the mess breaks out as the group of machines mobilizes and the protagonist struggles to fight his way through the devices trying to reach her. In the middle of the conflict, Yami suddenly appears and hands the boy the long-awaited solution, telling him to administer it to Lala while she takes care of the apparatuses. Thus, the young man man advances, but just as he approaches, one of the machines pins him to the ground. There, the princess prepares to activate the action and, with no other options, Rito expresses his feelings for her out loud, saying that he appreciates her. Hearing his declaration instantly returns the girl to normal, reversing the effects of the condition and restoring her usual personality. Suddenly, an alien ship appears and from it descends the monarch, who immediately takes his daughter on board, declaring that he does not approve of their union plans. After being taken on board her father's ship, Lala immediately asks him why he brought her back so suddenly, and he explains that he intends to hold the young man responsible for the claim he once made to become the main figure of the universe and prove his worth. The princess tries to defend the boy, reminding her father that he is just an ordinary Earth boy and that he was never meant for such a complex challenge. But the ruler refuses to change his mind. Later, Zastan visits Rito to deliver the official terms of the king's test and explains that starting the next day, a special challenge will take place with the young man serving as Earth's representative. He establishes that the boy must reach the spaceship before a designated time limit while facing numerous obstacles specifically designed to stop him. Then the commander reveals what is really at stake. If the young man fails the challenge, Earth itself will be destroyed. The news about the challenge spreads quickly, and soon the whole planet appears worried about the place's uncertain fate. Despite the pressure, Rito begins to receive phone calls from friends and classmates, all reaching out to encourage him and show their support. Eventually, he receives a call from Haruna, who asks to meet with him in private. Since journalists have already gathered outside his house, the young man secretly exits through the roof to avoid attention and meets with her. When they are finally alone, Haruna shyly mentions what happened the day before, specifically the boy expressing his appreciation for Lala during the mess. Embarrassed, the protagonist tries to explain that he only said it in the heat of the moment to stop the princess from launching her action, but also struggles to fully express what he truly feels. Deep down, Rito knows he has always had feelings for Haruna, but has never found the courage to declare himself directly. So he tells the young woman that if he successfully completes the Sovereign's challenge, he will express his true feelings to her in a proper way. Then the day of the test arrives, and, determined to protect the place, the boy immediately begins running toward the spaceship, hoping all his recent training finally pays off. But then large rocks suddenly begin falling from the sky, impacting directly in the young man's path and forcing him to dodge them as he continues to advance. Then strange vegetation emerges from the ground, beginning to wrap around everything nearby, and Rito narrowly avoids being caught. But just when he begins to lose hope, unexpected help arrives. Mikado, Yui, and Kenichi suddenly appear in a vehicle and rescue him from the dangerous area, showing great companionship. They explain that after carefully reviewing the rules of the challenge, Yui noticed that although the boy must personally reach the spaceship, there was never a rule stating he had to do it completely alone. With this loophole discovered, the young man notices he no longer faces the complex challenge in solitude and, together with his friends, continues advancing toward the ship with the place's fate hanging on the outcome. The monarch then launches another action, destroying the path ahead, cutting off their route, and leaving them stranded. But just when things look complex, Saki suddenly arrives in a helicopter and picks everyone up. Then more volleys of attacks head toward them, almost putting them in a critical situation. But Yami appears and rescues them at the last moment. Meanwhile, Haruna stays at home nervously watching the development of the challenge on television. While she worries that there is little she can do to help him, her friends suddenly arrive and insist that there is something only she can do for him, even if she does not notice it herself. Outside, a vehicle is already waiting for them with Ren driving, and they immediately head toward the young man's location as fast as possible. Back with Rito, he faces a group of slimy creatures that damage garments and block his path. Determined to help him succeed, the boy's friends hold back the creatures, effectively sacrificing their own progress so he can keep advancing toward the goal. The young man finally approaches the ship, but with only 1 hour remaining. The Sovereign reveals a final trap designed to ensure failure. Particular vegetation appears and releases a gaseous substance directly toward the protagonist, and when he inhales it, he becomes trapped in an illusion. There he sees both Lala and Haruna appearing before him, affectionately telling him that both have chosen to be with him. The fantasy is so convincing that the boy gets completely distracted and eventually falls into a state of unconsciousness. Watching from afar, everyone begins to worry upon noticing that the young man stopped completely, becoming convinced that he was finally defeated. But at that critical moment, Haruna arrives. Without hesitation, she calls out Rito's name as loudly as she can, and her voice pierces the illusion, instantly returning the boy to reality. Regaining his senses, he propels himself upward and begins running again with everything he has left. In the final moments before time runs out, the young man successfully crosses the finish line and completes the challenge. Suddenly, the scenario changes, and the protagonist finds himself dressed in formal attire with Lala standing by his side in a wedding dress while a crowd celebrates around. Confused and overwhelmed, Rito notices that the Sovereign is treating his victory as proof that he fulfilled his claim and won the option to marry the princess. Then the monarch formally recognizes the boy as worthy, declaring him a prominent figure. However, standing there next to Lala, the young man is forced to confront his true feelings since, despite everything, the person he truly loves is still Haruna. Noticing his hesitation, realization, the princess steps forward and addresses everyone. She explains that it would be selfish to ignore the boy's genuine feelings and proceed with an engagement that does not reflect what he truly desires. To everyone's surprise, Lala announces that she is formally ending their engagement. Then she decides that the clearest way to proceed is to remove everyone's memories using one of her inventions, allowing her to start over from the beginning. And before anyone can stop her, she activates the device. The next day, a new exchange student arrives at the school, and it is Lala, who once again introduces herself as if she knew everyone for the first time. However, her main plan does not turn out as expected, since her invention completely failed and everyone recognizes her. With tears in her eyes, the princess expresses her true feelings of how happy she is to have failed, and Rito welcomes her back with a smile, excited to have her with them. Then he goes to express himself to Haruna, but she stops him before he says it and asks him to save the declaration for the next stage of this peculiar story. If this story was observed until the end, it can be appreciated that space experiences are singular. That is all for now.